Okay, all good. All right. So once again, a very good evening to you. Most, at least in this part of the world, it's already could be officially a technically cold evening for 5 minutes. Good evening to you. Welcome back, and let's move on and see what are the few other things I would love to keep talking about, and hope you see my screen and my slide. Now I will again make sure I see all of you as much as possible and enjoy that company, and then yeah, and just again the same things, the same principles apply, that you're invited to ask questions as they come in a chat, or speak up, or wait until later. And there was not that many questions last time, so probably you've got some in the meantime. How did it go? Did you manage to think about those market assumptions and testing those market assumptions I left you with? Did anyone have time? Good. So any findings, maybe, if someone can just briefly give us the few bits of information how you were doing. So first, what those assumptions were. Secondly, what did you already maybe have done in terms of testing them, or maybe have plans to do it as a result of our discussion? Anything along those lines? Anyone could probably
I can jump in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, maybe I'll talk about specific one assumption we have, and that is about the what we are doing. One of the critical points is that actually we want to reduce specifically black carbon emissions from shipping industry. Black carbon is something like soot, black particles, and there is a lot of information about carbon markets based on carbon dioxide, but actually not for other, let's say, climate forcers. So our assumption is that we would be able to sell avoided emissions, black carbon emissions, on this carbon market. And now we are really trying to talk to carbon market specialists to understand whether it makes sense or not. And they're reaching out to different carbon market specialists and some certification companies.
So basically, Joseph, you basically want to sort of institutionalize the market for particles as it is for CO2, right?
Yes, and even we are trying to understand whether someone already done it for us before us, and it looks like not. So we are trying to understand, how easy it is going to be for us, to do it. What you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right?
And what is your current idea? How you're going to understand it? How you're going to test it? Talking to the
experts in the field. Basically, that's the main approach. Trying to talk to as many, both kind of from commercial side, but also from the regulation side.
Yeah.
And trying to understand, is there anything not carbon dioxide related, any other greenhouse gases or things like black carbon? If not, then actually our project might change a lot, because that's actually the financial core of the financial mechanism of our idea. So if it's the case, then it will be the direction as we aimed for. If not, then we have to choose to adjust the project accordingly.
Right. Is it only for shipping industry, or there are other polluting agents?
There are also others. We decided to focus for now on the shipping industry because that's one. We are also focusing on the Arctic region because that's actually where there is most harm from this black carbon. So it's kind of we decided, okay, probably it's good for now to keep a very sharp focus.
Right.
But we might go broader after we discover that it's a valid approach.
Good. And do you have already ideas how to reach out to those experts?
Yeah, basically I have a few, I guess, in my network, and every conversation I have with someone around this, to discuss this idea, to brainstorm this idea, I mentioned that we are looking for carbon market specialists. That's our kind of issue we are trying to understand. Do you know someone?
Oh, and I'm just curious how this ship can actually make it itself being less polluting. So how you can save those carbons?
It's actually a hardware solution. So simply put, it would be a filter, a physical filter, which gets installed, next to the exhaust and physically filters out the black carbon particles. So it's not a rocket science at all, but it's.
Is this one also your product, or it's other third-party product?
The idea would be that actually we cooperate with a third party that manufactures such filters. Yeah.
Perfect. Good. Harold, you definitely want to share something with us.
Yes, we were, I'm Kaia talking, not Harold, but we were assuming that everybody produces biological waste, and we made a survey to know how much people do it. And it turns out everybody do produce biological waste. So yeah, we already had one survey before on Google Forms. So now we just went more precise. We had like really precise questions to get like really information how we should develop our product, like what kind of amounts we're talking about and everything. And it was very successful. Like 19 people already answered, and now we get like some overall overview, like view how much is happening.
As to your product, is it important how much they produce the biological waste? Because maybe they are like households which do it a tiny amount, which doesn't interest you, right?
Yeah, it actually happened that we got like very different, like from 10 kilos to 500 kilos variation.
What timeline?
We had like during spring, during summer, during winter, like per month.
Per month, okay. I didn't hear that one yet. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, and yeah, like for me, it made me think like we have to be really flexible to suit like many different customers.
Yeah, but or focus on one which is currently the lowest hanging, maybe. I would be very careful with the idea initially suiting all the customers, so not knowing anything about the technology. So sorry for that, maybe very generic comment, but maybe finding out, like doubling down on the customers who have sufficient amounts, right, for your needs is much more viable than like helping everybody. I'm not saying it is the case, but sometimes it might be the case.
But we also got like valuable information that like the smaller scale is like most people produce less. So this means like the first like parts of this would be like rather small than big. So we got some really good like info, like is it like 1 cubic meter or 2 cubic meters? So we brought it down from how big is it to like 1 or 2, which is I think very important for us.
Absolutely, I think feasibility wise it is important for you to know what is the right size of thing.
Yes.
Okay, all right, good, great.
Also we found a few customers who were interested, so yeah, a lot of emails. It was really good spark to
always gather their contact information, provided they give that to you. All right, super cool. I'm so happy that you have done something in between, because or despite or whatever this discussion we had. So let's move on. Okay, so just a quick recap. I'll do a quick recap with you guys where I left you. So first of all, again, product market fit is this stickiness of your product to a good, into being placed into a good market. And don't overlook the need for having a good market in terms of both willingness to pay and ability to pay and understanding the problem and everything in between. Because if you're for some reason need to build that market, it might take too long for you to survive. That meant, but by that meaning that, of course, developing market is not a bad idea, but just be very critical about how much of time and resource that will take. All right, and finding this product market fit is important for you to really be firm and sound on that you are able to grow and scale. And the entire idea getting to that part is this iteration thing. I'm inviting you doing as much as possible, so coming up with assumptions and testing. So what we covered the last session, we did talk about the types of hypotheses and how you try figuring out what's the problem and who has it and who potentially is the customer. That's all the part with the market assumption testing, or AKA customer discovery. And then let's move into something that is sometimes referred to as a customer validation, or more precisely, figuring out what exactly is the solution that is going to solve the problem you've discovered. So, because not necessarily, once again, repeating myself, not necessarily the very fact that the customers have the problem automatically means that your solution is very valuable. It might not be, right? For some reason. Okay, so you go out and test your product assumptions. That much of this part, and this is again called with the fancy name customer validation. So parts or divisions or kind of versions of what are those product assumptions out there are what is the value you're bringing to table. How does that result into the functionality? Because it implies that you might probably focus down on some functionality which adds the biggest value, not necessarily offering all what you think is needed. And of course, how are you going to monetize this? How are you going to charge customers, or maybe not users, but other third parties for whatever you do? Again, just a reminder, you start with defining those assumptions in a form that it's testable, meaning short and concise statements, which ideally could be answered by yes or no. Then you think of what kind of methods you're going to use for testing it. What are those thresholds of pass-fail? Meaning that, okay, when we really will believe that this is true, not just good news, but the truth, and how much you do of that, of everything. Again, there is a combination of some amount of data you should gather to be more sure than with a lesser amount of data. Plus, if you're doing some kind of qualitative observations, it's always the pattern thing. Okay, you always start seeing things repeating. It means okay, probably you can conclude that this is yes or no, depending on what the pattern is. Then you go out and do testing again, and then you think and reflect what you have learned and how does that impact, how does that change your business model. That's simple. Just a recap on what we were discussing last time. I want a little bit to revisit sort of a concept of minimum viable product, because minimum viable product is a very kind of, the concept has where it has been very kind of similarly as a product market fit, it has been very debated, and there are plenty of opinions what it is, what it isn't. And I'm adhering to the initial definition of product market fit, the very first one, which was Eric Ries, the guy who wrote the book The Lean Startup, I believe already, God knows, maybe it's 13-14 years ago, or maybe I'm wrong with a year or so, but roughly. He got this. He kind of described the minimum viable product as a version of a new product that allows team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning with least effort. And this is kind of it stuck with me, and I would emphasize that once again. So MVP is not necessarily, it's most of times we associate MVP, and all the designer world in particular associates MVP with something that is readily sellable. Well, it might be sellable, but not necessarily. I'm more adept of the thinking of in a broader sense of MVP. So it's basically something, if we follow this very definition, it's something that could be sellable eventually at some point, but it could equally be also just some sort of a version of a product where you gather the information with the least effort. And if you think for a while for yourselves, you're early, or most of you are very early, right? That you don't have that much of in other words, I rephrase, you could think of something that is a source of information, the kind of a source of solution that is a source of information about what your potential customers want. Other than this is just something that is sellable. There's a question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the Lean Startup is the thank you so much, Alina. That is the book I was referring to by Eric Ries. Yes, Kirke.
Yes, I've got a question about pricing the MVP. So I've heard quite some stories, and also some people have told me like to price the MVP, because then I want your opinion on it as well. Is that like when you don't price the MVP and then you give something away for free, then you don't get the validation for like if they're gonna actually later on as well pay for it.
Yeah.
And also if you already have some existing customers, then for your MVP, how to like translate to them to like paying customers.
Okay, that's a beautiful one, and I just want to round it. I rounded up the point I was trying to make, and then I get back to the pricing part. So in other words, for me, the MVP is not necessarily a sellable product, but something you actually can throw against your potential customers and validate your solution. So to know how this, sometimes we use this phrase very, very rarely compared to MVP, that how the MSP should look like, first minimum sellable product. But back to this concept of the pricing, it's not only MVP. Let's move away from the MVP, because again, like I said, I would instill the idea that MVP is something slightly broader. I'll revisit that in a second. But I think, Kirke, your question is more of, okay, if there is already something that they can use, right, and have a benefit of, and how to, for the first customers, how I price my initial product, right, whatever we call it, MVP or MSP or just the first product or something. And you're absolutely right with that. This is one of the things you have to, at some point soon, and this is case by case, I would say, because sometimes you just need to run, free demos and pilots or something, just, because this goes in line with the idea of developing a market a little bit, right? Of trying to show how exactly this works and everything. But very soon, again, I can't say when exactly, very soon, ideally from the very beginning, when you start start to really offer it to your customers, you have to price it, and you have to price it in a sustainable way. By that I mean that you can carry on the business model, because one of the potential problems to reaching product market fit properly, or misjudging your product market fit, is that you price, for example, with a discount, and then everybody's kind of you do it like a 20% of the price or something like ridiculous at the cost, and then everybody is like super interested, and then at some point eventually you need to get back to normal, because you can't keep selling it on a loss, right? Because it's just neither scalable nor sustainable. You can't carry on forever that way, right? And then you just end up with the understanding that stickiness was not there. It was just because it was cheapest on the market, and people didn't use it for any other values. Just was ridiculously cheap, right?
I guess then, if I could say maybe as a conclusion, I guess it depends on the product, because for us, the first product actually already delivers enough value that I can see, like, I would ask money for this solution. But I guess when it's like really deep tech, then you want to test out earlier.
Once again, I want to emphasize that again. I'm not suggesting you should follow the logics, but in my world, the MVP is a wider context, not that only this first product you're kind of really like works full-fledged you're offering. But one minor thing, actually, some people, maybe it can help some of you. How I have learned to tackle this situation of initial pricing, and we will be talking on pricing a little bit later, because for many of you who are providing new user experience, right, something that even your potential customers cannot associate that product with, it's a very difficult question of how to price, right? Just generally how to price, because you don't have exactly analog perception, sort of perception of similar solutions like head-on. But the simple thing of me, maybe it also kind of partly tops up the answer to Kirke's question, is that I've learned it to do the way that I'm always operating with all the new products I've launched. I'm always operating the initial discount policy. So it's basically, if I want to move the market quicker, it's also a risk, you know, to the figuring out the product market fit. But you can always go like, okay, this costs you, right? I don't know, 100 euros or something per piece or per month. But for the first, you pay like 50 or something, like 50% discount, and then you always can jump back to the list price, right, without explaining to your customers that much, that how you're doubling the price if you were wrong in the first place. See what I'm trying to say? So you always can have the room of maneuver if you're saying that, okay, we just stop giving the initial discounts because only first 1,000 or first 100 customers were entitled to that. But this is a bit on a pricing. I sidetracked myself trying to answer that. Yes, Jürgen.
Well, I'm from Agency of Understanding. We had kind of the same pricing problem. At first, we saw that we are doing a translation. Translation is maybe 2 to 10 hours, 2 to 10 euros per hour.
Yes.
And we didn't see actually we could build a company with that money. We were testing and we found out that it's actually like a development process. That's UX service or ad service, like really from 100 to 300 euros per hour. maybe your initial product should be marketed differently. Like
what is your product or service? Just help me understand.
We are doing easy to understand text and easy to read text.
This is kind of in the easy language type of a thing.
Yes, that's easy language.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
At first it was translation, but now it's content creation. That's completely different market, completely different prices.
Sure.
Maybe this example helps others also.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. But you can always contest how your customer perceive it, right? So it's maybe.
Yeah, it was easy for us because first time I bought it, everybody told me it's translation. Yes, but it's really expensive translation because we have to do it 5 times. We have to meet several times and understand what you want to translate.
Mm-hmm.
to easy reading language, and we need to test with customers, with different groups, and it all costs money. And from that, going through maybe 5 times with this discussion, we understood, or I understood, that actually it's different market. Why we need to explain it all the time? We have to put the right pricing tag. And then we can also avoid the discussions.
But this is always a very interesting phenomenon. Again, I'm sidetracking myself a little bit, but this is very interesting phenomenon that based on how you price, you're perceived as a different product. This is an anecdotal experience of one of my friends who was running a countryside hotel, you know, this guest house or something. And that's just a silly example, but I think it makes the point actually similar to Jürgen's point, that she was actually sick and tired of not being able to make ends meet, because, you know, prices were fluctuating and it became more expensive and something, and she tried to keep it like at the affordable level. And then one season she said, screw it, and doubled the price, like literally doubled. And you know what? It didn't stay empty. Just a completely different clientele appeared. People who were not considering it before because it was kind of too cheap or something. And it was just an interesting, I think it's an interesting, like a psychological phenomenon, right? based on how you price, that's how they perceive you, what you are. And it also can go spill over to from a product category, like Jürgen was saying, to product category. It's not even within one product category. Okay. Yeah.
I have the same experience with hospitality, pricing from 35 euros, usually 65 euros. You put it 35, and then you get a customer claiming for a discount. Well,
yeah, something along the lines.
And
exactly.
I did it. I took it with a discount, and it was most demanding and most sloppy guest. So I stopped that.
Exactly. True. All right, let's move on. So with the concept of MVP, I want to get back to the topic I started. So in my world, again, that's my subjective take, and this is debatable, but in my world, MVP is very, very many things. You can gather the maximum amount of validated learning within a context with the least effort. So it could be everything from fully ready and sellable products, something we might call eventually in a narrower sense the MVP, and the working prototypes, maybe conceptual design prototypes, sketches, wireframes, landing pages, some just digital information out there, Facebook page or story, just a story you're telling. And obviously the upper ones are much more precise in terms of testing your solution, and the lower ones are much more imprecise, like vague. However, just please keep remembering that those upper ones are also most expensive and time consuming. And having a well-crafted story on how your product or especially service would look like is the least expensive and least time consuming. So in a sense, you have some solution test at your hand immediately after you've figured something out to what you're going to do. So this is kind of, I think it's quite sort of powerful in a sense that we often ourselves, sometimes being perfectionists, sometimes also having that experience of ourselves on the other side of the table, we sometimes tend to over polish whatever we call them, prototypes, MVPs and something, but we should not. At least this is my suggestion, that we should not. Yes, Jürgen. You have raised hand for some reason, so there should be a question, or this just by accident.
No, I wanted to, I just couldn't find the unmute button. This fully ready and sellable product, could it be like a working prototype when the fully ready and sellable product is for a very specific customer, for the customer who really needs it and doesn't mind that there are other things to do and doesn't need an expensive IT solution, just do the work. And
yes,
that's fully ready, and that's also like a prototype.
Sure, absolutely. The prototype can be sellable. And this is actually a good news. Again, not knowing anything about your context, but this is a good news. If you know, if someone is asking to buy your prototype, which you yourself still think is not ready, right, to be sold, that's definitely a good sign to me, because you thought of your potential product of something more superior to what you're having, but the people already are willing to buy what you're having. Okay, there is a context, of course, in the hardware world. You not necessarily are willing to sell the only thing you have in order to like DFM it later, the design for manufacture or something. That's a different story. But the very fact that they want to buy it, it's a great news. Sometimes in my life it happened that we went to trade fair with some prototypes and not necessarily returned with all of them. We were so proud about that, indeed. Because and we didn't give them away. We sold it for the hard cash and had good party at this trade show. Kirke.
Yes, maybe again I'm jumping already ahead, but I'm just wondering, because for me the MVP was always like, okay, like I'm just wondering the investor point of view. So I've understood the MVP is still like the minimum, literally the minimum. Like if I'm building a platform, then just to have some minimal solutions there, but the platform will be working, you know. So, but right now I'm saying that I'm thinking like, okay, I've had my MVP for a year already, you know. So now I'm like taking the platform that I will build the first, then as already the first product, but like what, so basically my question is like, what would be the view from investors?
That's a very good one. Again, like I said, this is a very debatable where to draw the line, but investors are very different, at least in my experience. Investors are very different. And definitely they should have something to raise external money. But again, the definition of something is very, very vague, unfortunately. There could be some things that are, you know, sometimes there is also a much more kind of intrinsic definition. There is this POC idea, like proof of concept, right? It's something that proves that it basically will be working. Not necessarily works now, but will be working, okay? And sometimes it's sufficient for the external investment. Again, not not, that could be very contextual also to what you're building. Yes, the investors typically want something to work, but the pre-seed investors, if we look at accelerators and other pre-seed super early stage things, the pre-seed by definition is something for you to finish the prototyping and build an MVP. So if we look from the definition of the stage-wise, this is not the funding workshop, but if we look the stage-wise definition, that the pre-seed eventually is the money for finishing the prototype or building the first MVP, and that's what the money is goes into, implying that you have to have something working, but not necessarily like a fully sellable thing out there before raising the external money. And there's another caveat, if to make things even more difficult, is that the more scalable, this is a rule of thumb, but in my life it has worked every time. It's a subjective, of course, judgment, but you can think about your fundability in the following way. The more scalable are the business models, the less you need to be developed to raise first money, okay? Because you're selling the dream, you're selling the upside eventually. Of course, you have to prove, you know, things that there's a working or whatever you call it being, but it may sound a bit counterintuitive, but it's not, because if you think for a while, in order to build really something scalable, you might need more funding, right, to the market, right, to the launch. So eventually you may start earlier needing external money. So is not that counterintuitive as it seems. But the more upside you have, theoretically a fresher without much of the product you can raise. The hardware people, which is again a bad news, often need to have quite a lot to raise, because generally, again, I'm generalizing, you have less scalable business models, with exceptions, of course, with exceptions. And this is somehow bad news, because, you know, in order to make a hardware work, you need the money initially. Something like that. All right, let's then go into this testing part, and super happy that we have a discussion ongoing. So once again, we discussed a few exploratory methods last time, which were these, and now let's go those for used for the customer discovery, and let's look into a selection of rather widely used pre-selling methods which are contributing to customer validation. So the solution or the product hypothesis testing, like these. All right, a little word on the land. There are combinations thereof, and again, I was suggesting the last time I left you the book, which was Testing Business Ideas, which is I still suggest you're taking a look at. There is plenty of variations of all this stuff we're discussing very in an abridged form tonight, but there's plenty of other things we've taken into you should probably want to learn about. So what is the landing page? The landing page, similarly to customer interviews, the landing pages are probably, in my experience, one of, if not the most common solution test out there. So what is a landing page? It's a simple website that is dedicated entirely to the product, not that much information of founders or whatever. It might have it then it kind of goes into a upgrade of the simpler website, but it's not necessarily so. You're just put it out for testing reactions onto your message and into your product. So it has these, classically, the simplest are those having those three three parts. One is the context or problem description. Other is the product or solution description. And the third is this called CTA or call to action. So you want those visitors of that page to interact with your call to action. And that could be everything starting from learn more to try it, become a tester, compile your product, everything out of those up to buy now. Okay, so eventually you want to people reading your story and seeing your story to interact with that information by converting from to anything between just leaving an email, learn more, to buy now. And buy now could be, again, we'll talk in a minute what follows the buy now button, but basically you trigger them into a purchase, into an order or pre-order for the matter. And this is sometimes also a very good thing how to think about. You can start without that much of this explaining the product in detail, but talk only about the problem or the context, and then you can have also a problem, like have it as a problem tester for someone whom, if you're not able to get people to talk directly to, so you can see their reactions on the problem and interest to follow you and to sign for news or something out there. The good news is that every one of us, no matter whether we code or don't code, can do the landing page or a simple website in a matter of few hours. We have plenty of those landing page / website constructors out there, no code solutions. I believe many of you have already used them as well yourselves. They are not like super cool for keeping them forever as your website builders, but it's definitely a very good starting point. And I would say that then if you're after thinking of creating a digital story and testing it, your call to action with a landing page, you don't need anything else than that. My favorites are Wix and Weebly, but I'm not insisting on my choices. Just the multitude of those no-code web page or landing page creators out there. So just try what suits you best. And the big idea is this, that actually every one of us can build a relatively decent landing page, but building a landing page does not get you anywhere. The trick is to have the eyes on that landing page, okay? To have the eyes on that call to action that you want the people to interact with. And that's why in order to run those tests, you might need some not a big one, but very, very modest, let's call it it's not marketing, it's kind of a testing budget. Because you want most likely get the people to your landing page through either banner ads or in less likely, but also maybe through some ad Google ads. But then the entire idea is that you just drive the traffic to your landing page, and then see, and the analytics should be proper. Analytics should be there to see the interaction, how many convert on the call to action, how many leave those emails, how many try out something, maybe build their own product version, or maybe sign up for testing, or even try buying. Yeah. So this is the entire idea. Again, like I said, with a certain skill and a modest budget, you can test out lots of things, both on your story about the problem, on your solution, on your price point, and all the other things that is doable there. One of the main ways how to do this is running 2 sites in parallel, and then directing each odd, for example, visitor from a banner to the one side, then each even to the other side. And since those are randomized people, there's no particular order how they are getting to one or other. You'll be having quite a good and neutral version of this test outcome. Sometimes I've asked how many is sufficient to draw some conclusions. I would say, again, this is not a marketeers will like tear me apart saying that it needs to be much bigger numbers, but this is not about optimizing marketing campaigns. This is about testing the initial stickiness, nothing else than that. So I'd say about 100 visitors to a site, you can see also already 100, maybe 101, 100 other, you can see already some results. In 2-3 days means like 30-50 visitors per day. It's very achievable with relatively small budgets. And the beauty is, again, it's already somewhat broken, but still, you know, Facebook can be very specific to whom, for example, or Instagram, to whom those ads are shown, meaning that you can define the profile of the visitors there. It is less efficient for B2B situations, but for the B2B products or services, for the B2C, it's much more efficient. Yes, Josef.
Well, to be honest, you just actually responded to my question about B2B versus
Yeah, B2B. Well, you know, again, the funny part is that the B2B, sometimes, you know, there is this notion of, you know, enterprise sort of solutions and the longer tail solutions. If you're, for example, selling something to small, medium enterprises, right? It's not that bad. I've seen situations where the people can land also from social media onto those like calls to action. If you sell something like profoundly for big companies, then most likely these are not the channels where anyone looks up after those, right? So yeah. So this is and as such, this is always a very good. It's a very good way how to obtain, you know, contact details. Sometimes you just use it for having the contact details of your customers that way. Again, it could be combined with lots of other tests like email campaign tests and online ads, like I mentioned, and maybe some other things. Just be creative and open. And the most important thing, again, is I want to get back to the basics, is really think of what is the thing you need to test. What is the thing and what are the outcomes you're seeking? So the landing page is something that is in a combination with something to me, has proved of being very, very powerful in terms of testing the interest towards a particular solution, for example. And actually, even if you use the buy now, for example, thing and run the A/B test with having, or subscribe now, for example, you run the A/B test with the one on one site, you're having, I don't know, something for 10 euros a month and other for 20. And if there is a similar conversion out of like 100 visitors, 4 and 5 convert, then it's not price sensitive. It's not the main thing how you probably decide on pricing. It's just a testing of your sensitivity of price. Now, the next thing, which is very, very much combinable with landing page is try to convert them, try to take that, trigger that payment, and after the big button buy now, you are ready to actually ask for their delivery detail and take their money and ship it. And sometimes I'm receiving like a criticism that this is unfair, that you sell something that you don't have. I don't think so. I think that it's wrong selling something that you would never plan having. But if you're very, very careful, and if you, for example, start with mock sales, and the mock sale is something that you have this buy now button, but then if someone pushes it, it prompts the interested party that, okay, sorry, we don't have it. We don't have it yet. We don't have it now, or whatever terminology you use. But if you care that we will please leave your email and we'll get back to you. That is one way how to tackle this. This is so-called mock sale. An actual pre-sale is when you try to close the sale and say, okay, we'll ship you in 2 months. Are you still okay with that? Something like that. You can do it like that. You can also again try to, also in the physical world, you can try to ask for prepayment. Because also B2B situations, you can ask for prepayment. And again, sometimes I'm getting the criticism that who in a sane mind will prepay something to a startup which barely has made it. You know, if you really need if they need what you're doing, they might prepay it, and that's a great news. Anyway, the pre-sales is the strongest, for most of occasions, is the strongest evidence that someone might need what you're building. Guntis asks, what kind of call to action would you suggest for hardware devices that will be built in 1 month after order received? Are you able to ship within 1 month? That's what you're saying, Gunti.
Yep.
Well, I would do then the pre-ordering campaign on your site. Well, I'll talk about that in a second. I will go like by just doing it not a roll on, right, because you don't have it, but I would do a pre-ordering campaign and on your site, not on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Just, hey, we are currently taking orders for our first batch of 100 or whatever it is. Put it out very, very straightforwardly and collect the money if you can, or you maybe just take this if you can fund it otherwise, or partly, I would say, just definitely take some part of the money. 1 month is way less than an average pre-ordering campaign shipment term is, but if you can do it in 1 month, of course. Joseph?
Yeah, if let's say if something product we are providing is actually quite expensive, in the range of like 1 million, what then?
The product cost for the customer is 1 million.
Yeah.
Then you do another simulation, which is called letter of intent. You do, if I would be you, I would go out to customer, because those are reputable. If the price point is 1 million, those are big companies, right?
Yeah.
This is not Papa Mama shops around the corner.
No, sure.
Similar startups like you. Okay, that's a good news for you. You go out to them and say, okay, talk to them, and they say, yes, we'll buy. If you deliver this and this, if the characteristics is that and that, right? And if whatever is there. And then you go and say, okay, we'll fulfill those. But how about putting this on paper? This is not legally binding. Mind it. LOIs are not legally binding, but they are very emotionally binding, in particular if the companies are big. You know, if those are really, I don't know, huge shipping companies, for a matter, right? They're not signing every paper they bring in front of them, right? So you do like this. You said, okay, try to getting them to put this on paper, of course, with those prerequisites for the stipulations that we are going to order one or buy one, provided that it has, you know, maybe there is technological characteristics, the thresholds it should reach, maybe something else. Maybe there is also other stipulations what are in you know, should probably be certified. I don't know what's there, right, in an industry. But there's definitely, you say, okay, we do all these things. If we do all these things and it matches some kind of criteria we both can establish and measure, will you buy? Yes, we will buy. Okay, let's put this on a paper. You have this LOI, and believe me, your fundraising is about 3 to 5 times easier. That's what I'm saying. That's the only trick. You go out and say, hey, how about this, you know, I don't know, huge company like Tallink or whatever is there, right? Is willing to buy provided we make it. Okay, let's fund us to make it. Something along the lines. Because of course you can't, it's not, you're not there yet. Because even if you take, maybe even if those companies will be happy paying you, right, some kind of I don't know, 50K to make it, right, it won't turn your needle most likely. If 50K, you know, most probably you need 5 times more to make it, right, to sell it for 1 million.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. This is kind of a thing. So back to Guntis. I would really think that, well, let's then organically move to that discussion here. There you can first of all, you can take pre-orders on an ongoing way, and sometimes you can fulfill them in an ongoing way, and you have some products to sell and turn around. But sometimes it is, especially for the hardware, and we're talking mostly hardware in this case, you sometimes need to squeeze it in a campaign, just for the reason of reducing the manufacturing costs and everything, right? So that's what you call a pre-ordering campaign. And there's
what would be, sorry,
yes,
sorry, what would be your thoughts about partnering with beekeepers, vendor stores, or other beekeepers app where our solution will be adding value to their platform? So not all brand, but we really quickly could ship out around 200 to 300 devices.
You mean that you cooperate with already some existing technology and equipment supplier of beekeepers?
Yeah, that's the decision right now.
Yeah, okay, then you're B2B, or even probably white label if you're okay to make it on with their logos and brand. Then we back to the discussion with the B2B, we back to discussion we had with Joseph. That you just try to agree with those guys that if they somehow participate or even prepaid partly, that you can make it for them. And if you're a white label, then I would move away from the LOI. I would move into just the prepayment. So you're basically kind of out. It's not exactly an outsourced relationship, but it's kind of a white label relationship. You go to some kind of a beekeeper supplier brand and say, okay, we're happy to do these things for you, and you just pay us I don't know, 30% or 40% or whatever makes you to make it, right? Because there's a margin on this as well. Pay in advance, and you'll get it in 1 or 2 months time or something like that. Then it turns into, then you're away from the B2C market. You're not directly selling to the end users anymore. Then the only thing you care is how to make your, largely the only thing you care is how to make your your business, business partner, this vendor, the technology vendor for beekeepers, how to make them happy. And this is entirely different value proposition. Of course, you have to have a basic value proposition ready for the end user, but then you have to develop another value proposition for this supplier. Because the very fact that this is just another thing to supply is not always helpful for getting them on board. They need to know what's in it for them. Is it a very good margin? Is it something else? Is it the possibility that you would, in those markets they are operating, you would never launch your own branded product? Something along the lines. But this is the idea about this B2B2C. I would say in Gunter's case, it's B2B2C. You have to always figure out the very sticky value proposition for the end user, but also for that partner who helps you get it into there. Because if the partner will be lukewarmly interested, you won't get to the end user because you're heavily dependent on the partner. But there are a couple of things we already with Gunther. It's like three scenarios we discussed here. So let me finish with the pre-ordering campaigns. So there is this, reward-based crowdfunding. And some of us have heard of that. Some of us already tried our luck, and some of us have been maybe backed something there and received something or not received something there. So the idea I want to leave with you guys, because historically in Prototron there are quite many hardware companies, so I entrust that there are also some here, is that don't think of these Indiegogo and Kickstarter and those kind of reward-based crowdfunding sites. Don't think of them as the only, or other sites in Fundwise, for example, or someone in Baltic. Don't think of them as the only opportunity for your crowdfunding. Think of as an alternative also running and pre-ordering campaign on the own site, and maybe even on the simple landing page I was suggesting. And both of those approaches have their pros and cons. It's not necessarily that one is much better than the other. So both have some pros and cons. And in my experience, I've been part of some crowdfunding campaigns in the past. The single biggest pro of this Kickstarter type of a site or any other type of site is the potentiality of virality. So in other words, if there is a potential for you really being super popular, like a fidget spinner or something, and it requires a certain type of product, by the way. An ideal Indiegogo or Kickstarter product is something that is hardware, item sale, and not too technological, funny enough. That's why all the for example, card games like Fly There, right? All the exploding kittens and whatnot, and also simpler things, and not instead of very sophisticated things. Why? Because there is a technology risks which prohibit from shipping, right? That's a simple, like, intuitive answer to that. Anyways, so the only thing what is great about those sites is that there is potentiality of probably a bit better visibility and hence the virality, but still you have to understand that the most of the traffic the most of the backers you will have on those sites is someone whom you draw to that site, right? Those are not like random people coming, oh, how cool thing is that, let's buy a few, right? Let's back it. So I would say that this is the single benefit. So if you're a card game or something along the lines, try your luck on Indiegogo or Kickstarter. But other than that, it is more expensive because you have to have, first of all, you have to share those few percent with them. and most importantly, what I've observed, what the expense comes from this longer closing funnel. Because if you assume that you are driving the most of the traffic yourself to that site, right? That you imagine you have it in your channel, you warm it up, sometimes even it gets to your site, and then it gets to the crowdfunding site. And with each potential movement from one place to other, obviously not all 100% like are landing there. There's a churn, and if you just have half of them which read this information on your channel or went to your site, if you just half of them lands to the crowdfunding site, that eventually every backer costs you twice as much. Okay, so that's simple mathematics. So I would say that in most of occasions, running this pre-ordering campaign on your own site is not a bad idea. You have a better campaign control. You, for example, can define it does run not for 30 or 60 days, but until 200 orders, right? Because often for you in small batch production, you are kind of dependent on the order size, not that much of whether there is this or that many days left and everything. So it's for the same reason, shorter closing funnel. There's difficult to be super viral from your page only, but again, that's a very specific type of a product which could ever get viral, right? And it's somehow, in my experience, again, maybe I haven't followed it too much lately, but from my experience already, the reward-based crowdfunding sites are a little bit over its major hype, where it was like 5-6 years ago. But I might be wrong with that. I might just not follow it myself. So once again, in a nutshell, taking pre-orders, you can take pre-orders just simply by closing the sale through the buy now button, or you can do it like prepayments and strike the deals with B2B, or you can run campaigns, and you can run campaigns both on your site as also on the dedicated reward-based crowdfunding sites. Why I'm mentioning the reward-based? Because there are plenty of other crowdfunding out there. There's equity crowdfunding and loan crowdfunding and donation crowdfunding and whatnot. Guntis asks question, what kind of testing methods in marketing avoid in order to receive more believable stickiness data? I'm not sure, that's a very broadly pitched question, but one thing I want to emphasize, which thank you, maybe that was the thing you were asking accidentally, Guntis, but which brought me actually to make a comment, which I want to emphasize. This is super important. Another thing why I would invite you being super careful with pre-ordering campaigns. The campaign, not both on your sites and also on the dedicated sites, because campaign implies that you want to achieve something within a time frame or get to a certain production batch as soon as possible, and it can ruin your test of your stickiness of your product market fit, because inevitably you are you have a pressure to invest in marketing, right, and to market it everywhere and just be everywhere and all the banners and everything. And in the end of the day, many pre-ordering campaigns and the crowdfunding campaigns, for the matter, end up in a situation where they raise 100,000 euros by spending 90,000 euros. Okay, and this is the big issue. I'm not sure if I'm answering Guntis' question, but I want to emphasize that don't market. Remember that we are talking, don't market extensively in order to test your stickiness, in order to test your kind of a natural tailwind of whatever you're doing with your customers, you have to get it in front of their eyes. This is sure. But don't think that you should like market it heavily, because it kind of sometimes mimickers, sometimes like stands in a way of understanding whether they're really interested, or it was just so extensively marketed that they got on a hook and bought something from you. And again, this goes long back to the one of the questions Kirke was asking initially. Avoid situations where these are not sustainable, right? Because that is most likely means that you're not sticky, that there is not product market fit, because you're just we're spending as much on the marketing as you were selling, and this is indeed not sustainable for everybody. Okay. So this is the idea, maybe what things to avoid and sort of to believe, to get to believable stickiness data. So there is a fine line between getting it in front of your potential customers and like really spending too much to force them to buy it. That was one thing which came to my mind while reading Gunther's question. I'm not sure. I probably there was something more I wanted to say about this particular matter, but yeah, this also goes in hand with the idea of how you price, those pre-ordering campaigns. If you price them very differently from how you will be pricing your product later, there is a fair chance that you're not checking it. You're not testing the stickiness as well as you want, as you need it. And the one more thing I want to briefly run past you today is the so-called concierge method, and there is 2 versions of it. But this basically is a method where you can also a kind of a testing method for sort of pre-selling or selling method, or sometimes mock selling method. So the basic idea is you deliver something you do not have as a product or as an automated solution. You deliver this manually. In other words, just for example, you have this developing this wonderful sustainability calculator for timbering industry or whatever. I just made up this from the top of my head. And then you don't have it, but you invite all the interested parties just to submit their data with you, and you will do it. You calculate it as a service. It is, this is kind of open rendering of the service. You can do it also another way around. You can just in another way, you can say, okay, hide behind the digital curtain, just ask to submit the data, and then quickly try to play as if you would be a machine, quickly answering those inquiries by hand. Or the third rarely used form, but still a very good one, is like you again ask them to combine their product. Before this buy now button, you have this and this and many versions of that functionality, this functionality, and then you actually see which of those multitude of versions the people typically choose, which is a good information for what you need to make. So the basic idea, no matter which one you plan and which one you can run and which one you can't, the key benefit of concierging is that you understand what is the typical inquiry. And sometimes this is a big idea with you, because you in theory you can make it different ways, right? Both the hardware and digital, also software product, you can do it this or that and everything. But the great news, if you ask them, invite them like to supply their requests or to order from you, and then you sort of fulfill it manually by hiding it or by not hiding it, it gives you a great insight of what the first automatic product should look like often. That's a good one, because then you can see, okay, then looks like most of those inquiries are coming, you know, from, I don't know, I'm making it up now, from iOS, right? Operating system. Okay, that means that our first app is iOS. Or we see that this a typical you know, combination for the hardware functionality is ABBA. Okay, that means that we are fine not doing all the other 7 combinations you can have out of, no, my bad, all the other 15 combinations you can have out of the 2 versions of 4 functionalities. That's a very powerful thing. Sometimes if you really want to understand with a with a relatively little effort what your customers really typically are after. What is the typical use case? What is the typical order? What is the typical customer, and everything along the lines. I found it sometimes very, very useful to look into that. Just moving on, we have a bit of time still left, and I want to finish also in time. One thing about the solution with every test, but one thing about the solution testing in particular, think super carefully of what exactly you want to, what are you testing? Remember, what are you testing? Not just do it for the sake of doing, but what do you want to understand? And based on that, pick the right test, pick the right experiment. Another thing is, yes, if you feel free, if you have designer friends or any great people around you, of course, use help in setting up landing pages and all the campaign organization and everything, but do not delegate the designing the test itself. This goes in line with what I told you a week ago, that do not delegate the customer interview process, right? Or the survey process. Don't delegate it, because you have to be part of the designing the experience and part of learning the insights from it. You just can ask for technical help. That's fine. Yeah. Pre-ordering as a product market fit test and not funding option. This is partly what I answered Gunt, is that don't force it into the full kind of, don't force it into the meeting the targets and KPIs, but look like whether it shows some stickiness with your customers. What are the customers suggesting other people? You can run again some referral tests saying, okay, would you refer to other people to my product for karma points or discounts or thank yous? And because even if the discount is not insanely great, most of us think of yourselves and your buying decisions. If the product is not yeah, then most of us would not bother to suggest it to everyone else, even with the discount, right? Because we don't want the other people having a lukewarm, a mediocre experience. So don't treat any pre-ordering as product market as a funding option. Be ready to fund it anyways, or have a leverage funding to it. Just think more carefully into this, whether it provokes some stickiness, whether there is an natural interest in your product. One thing I think I also mentioned last time, if you have some demo to make, that of course you can feel free to do the customer in the end of the customer interview, also do some demo, do some showing of your solution. Not in the beginning, but in the end, because it will tunnel vision the people discussing their problems with you if they see your solution too early. But it's definitely worth trying. And then there is this thing I want to have just a little sideways on this one, emphasize in particular what I already mentioned, that sometimes your product is not a better version of some experience, but it's too new of an experience anyone can actually compare it to something, which means that if you're in this new experience product market, you might want to price on value. I'm not sure whether you have anyone talking in more detail about pricing and Prototron. I believe definitely there is someone who's more knowledgeable, but in my simple world, you can price in 3 ways only. If you have a existing user experience product, so something better than the others, which is comparable to the others, you price on a market / competition. So you try to play around that price, it's there, right? And whether you're better or faster or someone else, then you price accordingly, a bit more expensive, a bit cheaper. Maybe there is some, I don't know, sustainability angle to your product, then it's more probably commands a premium. In some markets, it doesn't work that well. So this is an existing user experience. But if you're having a new user experience situation, if you're building a brand new user experience, your customers cannot easily understand how much that would cost, provided, of course, you provide some value. Then you price on value. In other words, you try to understand how much customers are willing to pay you. And if you have one-time offers, like one-time specific orders, pardon, then you price on cost, because that's the only way. You can't price anyhow else than on a cost. If someone asks, print me these 500 books, the only way how to price this is on a cost, because you don't have, because every book is different, right, out there. So you can't take another 500 books you printed last time and someone competition printed last month and price on that. And also this is not the offer is not a new user experience, so you can figuring out how much they are willing to pay is a little bit of waste of time. So you basically price on a cost. Somewhat, yeah. Joseph asks, like, commodity versus non-commodity. Well, not only non-commodities, also, very understand. I would say I like this version of new user experience versus existing user experience products, because and services for the matter. Because if there is an existing user experience, then it's difficult to price differently than the common sense says, right? The market and the competition goes. If you build something really completely new to the market, then it's easier to price on the value. Okay, how to price? Again, Guntis asks, if the customers in one country are willing to pay more than another country willing to pay less, well, then sell to those who are willing to pay more, of course, Guntis. But if you still are interested in that country that wants to willing to pay less, you can play it by finding a different channel. You can play it by giving a discount to that country. Remember, we spoke about the discounts, right? But I would not invite, again, if your product is niche, I'm departing, but that's a good question. That's why I quote. If the product is niche, then you can sustain a very different price points in many different markets forever, because they would not find out and they would not bother to go and buy somewhere where it's cheaper, right? But if the product is well known and a mainstream, but most importantly well known, then the price gradients between the markets are not sustainable, because the people will start, if you're popular with the product, the people will start parallel importing, right, from the markets where it's cheaper to the markets expensive, where it's more expensive, and you screw all your distribution like hell. So don't keep in mind that having different price points, if you're niche and not particularly known, is actually you can sustain it forever. It even probably doesn't. You don't need to bother to align the prices. But once you become more popular, you need. Sorry, that was the quick answer to Guntis. Yes, Kaia and Harald.
So I had a question like about pricing. It comes from when I was working in restaurants. So in the restaurant we had like, so this is the raw material, but the food what you what you pay, like when you go to it, you pay like the raw material is 1/3 of the whole price. That's the restaurant business. Like, is it also like viable in like other hardware solutions? Like, is it a good rule of thumb?
Say it again. I was a little bit distracted. What was the idea?
If you go to restaurants and order a meal, you pay
10 euros.
You pay 10 euros, and like usually the raw material for this is maybe like 4 euros, 3 euros.
Yes.
So like, but if I'm building something else, like I need bricks and concrete and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, will this rule of thumb also apply to any other product? So I take the stuff I pay for the materials and I triple it for the end user price.
So that was the question of a markup, whether like tripling is fine or not fine. Well, it depends on it's pretty much unanswerable question. It depends really from how much the market is how much is the market competitive. Because if you can afford the tripling, like doing such a gross margin on things, yes. I would even argue that sometimes you need to, again, the rule of thumb is this in a hardware, if we stick to hardware, because there is a SaaS question, but that's super different. Pricing SaaS is super different from pricing hardware. Now, I would say that, again, the rule of the thumb is this, that the more specific, the more niche is this hardware product, the more you have to mark up. Otherwise, you're just not going to sustain it. Because often it's related also to the amount of the things you can produce and everything. So I would even say that, for example, in specialty electronics, not consumer electronics, it's a bit different, but in specialty electronics, my experience is that if the suggested retail price, right, something that you buy at some showroom or the distribution office, right, if the suggested retail price is 100%, that most likely you should be able to manufacture it as a manufacturer for something between 20 and 25%. Because you have a distribution margin, the channel, because you're not selling it directly. It's a channel margin, so most likely you're getting out of, especially if it's an exporting use case, you'll be getting it out of the works, out of the factory for about 50-55% of that 100. The rest is all the distribution and retail sometimes and whatnot. So in order to be okay with this 50-55 out of the your company, 25 is like just doubling, that expense. Is not much. It looks like much, but it's not much at all. Not at all. It depends from the channel again. If you can sell directly to the entire world, right? Maybe you can do it like 100 to 50, right? And keep all to you. But again, it limits the channel. It narrows the channel. Often, if you want to be in a retail, then you broaden the channel, but then you face the consequences of much tighter margins. That's depending on how you go. Kirke was asking a question about SaaS. Well, that is an entirely different story. That is, again, That's the question of either you have the situation of because cost-based pricing in SaaS is not working anyway. But there is this, I would say, again, that's a question of novelty. If it's something you can compare with, then you just go with something you can compare with. If it's a new user experience, then you try to figure out what's the value, because it definitely adds some value to the customer, and you want to have some fraction of that value back to you in terms of the subscription price point. I'm not sure I answered, but this is there's not much of things to take, to other things to take into account than the willingness, just the pure willingness to pay. And just organically from Kirk's question, moving to what I wanted to tell you is that sometimes if you're very early, of course you will do the testing and you will experiment maybe with the pricing and everything, and many actually companies known to me, they actually started to grow only when after several unsuccessful experiments with the pricing, they found some pricing which was working for them, right? It's not also that simple in SaaS models and similar. But one thing you can do early on, if you're not still having those customers around, and the ones, and most importantly, you don't have the product around to start selling and test selling. There is this rather famous actually method of 4 questions. And sometimes in the interview, you can ask also about their willingness to pay. And typically we ask either the question, are you going to pay X, which is the most silly one, because you're already kind of like limiting the answer to yes or no. Or then sometimes we ask, how much are you going to pay for that? How much you're willing to pay for that? Is slightly better, but this is also not contextual, especially if you don't have any product to test with. It could be, you can have a very wide variety of those answers. Somebody, maybe if you have tried asking that question and actually it's not, most of the times it's not very helpful if you're not hinting yourselves how much it could be, kind of a bracket, because people perceive very different things with your solution before they see it. Okay, but sometimes you are interested early on understanding whether it's just a ballpark, it comes together, it makes kind of a sense of a healthy business model, right? So sometimes you are interested asking that, figuring out how much they are going to pay very early on. And then you do this, ask those 4 questions, but mind it, only ask the questions only to those customers, for example, interviewees, who really are interested in your solution. If someone is not your customer and is not impressed about what you're building and is like nothing of that, do not bother to ask how much you're going to pay. I think it's, you get it intuitively. It's just a noise in a channel, because if I don't think that's a good solution, that you shouldn't care what I think it should be, how should it be priced. So, and the question is, in those 4 questions is this. So, and nice, sometimes you even get them on one page of a paper, because sometimes, answering to one, seeing the next question influences the answer to the previous. So you for example, you discussed your product, you did some demo initial or whatever that was, and then you go like, okay, and the people say, yeah. Where can I order it? Where can I buy? Subscriptions, item sales, everything. This one is not working with a percentage from a transaction business model, because people don't have an abstraction level sufficiently high to think in categories of 3% is okay, or 30% is okay of whatever transaction. But for all like sales, for all the price models like subscriptions, recurring revenues, plus also the item sales, it works well. So first question, okay, you want to buy it, you need it, you would like to test it, you would like to line up for pre-order, whatever is there. What's the good price? So what is the good price? Per month, per item, whatever. What's really a fair price? You immediately pay without a hesitation. The second question, what's suspiciously low price? For some things, there is definitely, not for all things, but for some things there, and for some people, there is something that you just, if this is the best and the cleanest and the greenest and the most sustainable and this and that and whatnot, and smells and taste is and everything, and it's cheaper than whatever. So the question is, wow, that's something's wrong with that. Some promise is fake, right? So what's a suspiciously low price? The third question, what's too high? And this is actually the question why you ask this set of questions only to people who are genuinely interested in your product or solution. Because yes, I am a customer, yes, I need it, but this is the price I'm not going to buy to pay. Okay, this is kind of the context of this third question. And the fourth question, what's high but you'll still buy? So it's not a fair price, but it's kind of a highest I would buy, I would still pay for, right? And if you get it, yes, Joseph? You're muted.
Yeah, thanks. I had it's a bit specific question. So we think we can actually help our customers to kind of finance the purchase of their solution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's say the solution costs like 1 million,
Mm-hmm.
but then with the additional service you provide, they'll be able to earn it back in, let's say, 3 years or 5 years time.
Okay.
How should we, what's kind of the best approach to offer it?
It's kind of a ESCO type. Someone funds it and then gets the money from for example, from those trade of black, right? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I have to think. I'm not a smart guy. I have to think for a while how that could go. But what is the subject of the object of the test? Do you want to know how much they're going to pay, or do you want to know how fast is this threshold of payback? What is the test there?
Yeah, the test is good question. I think the test is indeed like how high is it basically kind of resistance limit to this project, given that we kind of earn it back anyway, to basically capture as many customers, you know, as possible.
But okay, but you have to dig deeper. What is the critical element? Is the buyback is a critical right thing, or is the certainty about having something, or it's maybe, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe if it's not, you know, for some reason, if it's that you assume some risks also, right? Maybe if there is, it's a very complex, I think the funding, it's not that much of a purchase, but it's more of a funding, like structuring of the funding model of that purchase is probably the key value proposition. Not the key, but one of the most important value propositions you bring to the table.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not a matter of asking what they think of a price. It's more of a method of really selling them the kind of potential upside later when they're, you know, recovered the investment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I was thinking, let's see, we could say, you know, it costs like 1 million. Return ROI is like 5 years.
Sorry, it was my cat. you fell off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we could say like the price is 1 million and there, you can earn it back in 5 years, or we could say, yes, the price is actually, I don't know, like 1.5 million, but then the ROI is, I don't know, 7 years, right? So
But
Right.
you can A/B test. You can if one implies more of their involvement, right? Another is more of external, like ESCO type of finance. That's the if I would be again, if I'm getting correct what you're asking, if I would be you, I would saying, okay, I would be saying we have these two options. Like with the SaaS is either monthly fee or yearly fee, which is 12 months fee, but there's with a significant discount. Typically something around 20-25% with the entire idea that people will probably that would be the reason they will stay with us like for the year instead of churning after 1 or 2 months. And then I would just a simple you just say, okay, we have two funding schemes. One is that you pay I don't know, you co-finance it with 20% of the cost and you recover it in 3 years. Another is you co-finance it with I don't know 10% of the cost, but you have you recover it in 5 years. And then you probably will have, if you discuss it with a few, again, don't have that many customers, but still you out of maybe 3, 4, 5, you will get the idea that they are more susceptible to the recovery, or they're more susceptible to the co-financing, and that would be answering where you go.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Something like that. All right, and if you just rounding up this one, if you're sort of let me look. Okay, we're already moving on. So if you gather around, I would say 30 answers. 3 answers will give you won't give you any patternization here. But if you gather around 30 answers, maybe 40, you won't see this beautiful. Will be about 200 answers. Will render those beautiful hills, but it will be more of a peak shaped hills. You will see those answers clustering. You'll see those answers clustering. So answer is suspiciously low, followed by the good one, then high but still buy, and too high. And then if you want to start, offering some kind of, I don't know, landing page price points or something, you can think of something that is for most of them, for most of your potential customers, was indicated as something between a good one and high but still buy. Once again, this is very superficial way how to look on the value-based pricing, but often very useful if you're super early on and you can't have anything already to be sold immediately with the market. All right. That was a very nutshell. Once again, I refer you to the book, which was Testing Business Ideas for much more information, much more difficult, different combinations of tests. But that was about the next thing. So you had these, understood the problem in a customer, understood what are the solutions that are sticky and how they could be monetized. And then you go into the last thing. Think for yourselves whether you are moving on, whether you are changing your direction significantly, or whether you're stopping your project. So again, as couple of rules here. Once again, make sure that you believe that information that you have gathered. Is there evidence that your product solves a real problem? Is there indication that there is a working business model out of it? And not most importantly, but equally importantly, is the opportunity big enough? Is the market big enough? Can you reach out to it? Can you sell to it? All those things matter. So if all those hypotheses are sort of you have approved, then you just move on and build a product and launch it and grow and scale. Or if you saw that something's not working along those lines, something's not repairable, or you don't know what to do about it, but you at the same time saw something in other opportunity within a market somewhere next to it, then you do what it's called in English pivot. You move, like change the direction radically. Maybe it's a business model change, from subscription to pay per go, or from that to this. Maybe there's a significant change to what is your customer segment, the value prop, or even the product functionality itself. All those things are could probably be changed to a better version, to more sustainable, more scalable business model. Yes, Joseph?
Yeah, thanks. It's me again. So I mentioned at the beginning that for our project, we think that the key is to understand whether we can actually kind of sell, the avoided emissions as carbon credits.
Mm-hmm.
But that's again, it's our assumption that in order for us to sell, this filter to our customers, we should be able to make it profitable for them.
Yeah,
that's kind of the idea. And I mean, it's super kind of obvious thinking that they want to be able to sell this as carbon credits.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think we still should test it?
Yes, because if there is no market, then all your proposition of savings is dissolving, isn't that?
No, I mean like that they actually do we need to test the idea that they want actually to make money with it? It's it's super obvious. I guess everyone in the business wants to make money, right? But
provided it's not a hassle. Everyone wants to make money, but if it implies a major change to existing like routines and workflows, it might not be so. So I would say that if it's a hassle-free making of money, everyone wants it. And the second thing, if the money is visible, right? Because if I was recently working with one larger company in Baltics, with one corporate in Baltics, and they were actually developing a new product line, and then afterward they scrapped all the developments after we together found that out of the turnover of some 200 million they're having, it would add in a best case scenario, it would add another 1.5 million in revenues. And the guys looked, scratched their chin and went like, no, for 0.75% of the revenue increase, it's not, just doesn't matter anything. So this is another angle, if this savings are sustainable. But there is another thing to your case, because that's also not only about money, it's about being maybe compliant, to some requirements.
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment there are no regulations for this subject, but maybe they have some other motivation for it. Let's say we are not able to fund it. We sell them filter, they become cleaner, but they can't sell any carbon credits. But they might have some other incentive, like for example, have a greener image for the company, or any other ideas which I don't know currently.
Mm-hmm. But you answered, Joseph, beautifully to your own question. Figure out what bothers them. Figure out any levers you can pull in order to make it happen. And maybe, it could be like making money in a frictionless way, but it could also be looking good. And by the way, not losing money by doing that. That's another proposition. And maybe you can structure even a better proposal saying, hey guys, you won't, we promise you are not going to lose money, and the rest is history, right? And we take all your money and you just look good. And it might fly with some, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Because people often, when they're exposed to those, you know, ESG, most importantly, the environmental, you know, requirements, all businesses I know are anything between medium to heavily concerned that it will cost them money. So selling them that it's not going to cost you anything and you will be clean and green in some industries goes a long way.
Yeah. One other factor which we considered is that actually going from their exercising pressure on them through their customers. You know, like shipping companies, they transport, you know, let's say for large companies like Amazon or IKEA.
It might work, but again, be careful with the lot, very plenty of discussion and not that much of, you know, deeds that follow, and they follow with a lag time. I'm not saying everything's greenwashing, I haven't said that, but sometimes, you know, it's not there yet. And again, try avoiding things that are not there yet, unless you know that they're really coming, you know, as a legislation that, like from 1st of January or something, then fine, then bet on this. But if it's like, it might come in 3 years, it might come in 5 years, it's a very risky situation to wait for 5 years. Most likely the startup is not able to survive it. Jürgen, your turn. You also have got cat.
Just this persevere, pivot, or kill. Maybe I had one idea. We just got 2 banks as our clients, I could say.
Yes.
Maybe like a good point to say that, well, this is set and we shouldn't work with this development client for developing to banking and that kind of segment. That we just go on with that and open like a new product line. We separate one and new customers.
Yeah, eventually, sometimes developing, like even you fake it a little bit, saying, okay, for this industry, we have this product, something like that.
I feel that we are working maybe too much for clients we already have, because when we have banks and covering Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania with 2 banks, then maybe we shouldn't worry too much about these kind of customers. We just need to make it better and put our effort to new markets.
True, but I think the critical thing, if I understood what you're trying to accomplish, Jürgen, the critical thing is really how you can scale this, right? How you can make it, how it could grow without incurring of constant, like, linear expense of the growth of expense. That's the trick.
Yeah, that's a trick. And well, there's a lot of more. There should be much more companies to get involved and to buy our product. So the product should be automated product. Not just bank. We can do the banks, and with maybe 10 we can get 40 people on board, but not more. That's
exactly.
We also need to some schools and companies who do hardware and who do software and who do services. And smaller companies who can't afford this 2 hour.
Maybe you can package it somehow, some kind of a know-how that you could start selling advice instead of the product. I'm just thinking out loud, because advice is better scalable than you know, some sort of service. Advice is like a royalties, you know, on technology. You can do it over and over, or you can package it and let the others do and enjoy a little little
Yeah,
or not
yeah.
that little royalty on it. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's move on and let's finish in style. A few more things for me. So once again, this is the entire idea is turning that circle round and round and round at a good speed, going from assumptions to testing, understanding problem, understanding solution, understanding where you go next, and that's how you move to the product market fit. So a few like super quickly, few misconceptions. Product market fit is always binary thing. Yes, you have to have it in some way, but it's not necessarily always a binary thing, which also goes together with it's contextual. But that by not being binary, I mean it's very contextual to the situation. And things change, so that's not the case, which also then goes together with the other one that is obvious and clearly seen. No, it's not. It's seen that it is, but you can't often figure out which is the sticky part. Are they buying because you're local? Are they buying because you're cheap? Are you buying because you have the best customer service? Are they buying, which is the decisive factor, or combinations of factors? And by not understanding it, it's sometimes very difficult to scale the business models and grow the business models, because you don't see really from customers' perspective what is exactly triggering the purchase. One can't lose the product market fit once it has been achieved. That's a big blunder. Think of an exporting use case. Often the exporting markets require very, very different business models in order to stick to some stickiness to some product market fit. Definitely you can lose the product market fit because things move, technologies develop, customers' preferences change. You can think of all good old obsolete products which have been swiped out of the market, not necessarily by technological advance, but by change of behavior of the customer. Of course, you can lose the product market fit easily. So you have to make sure this promise of something sticky to your customers is sustainable. And then another funny thing, sometimes people think that the product market fit makes competition irrelevant. I would argue that's the only first moment when it becomes irrelevant, because if your head is below the water, the competition doesn't see you. If you start raising fast, then you are first time you are observable by any competition. So the very moment you having product market fit, that is something that people start to study or copy or something. So it exactly is the situation where the competition becomes relevant, because then you have to figure out how, with all the three other things about how you can stay ahead of the competition by having that stickiness of your product. All right. So why then we feel like really moving into the very, very finish. So why you need to do that, as remember the iteration and trying to test things with little effort, getting the maximum learning about your customers, their preferences, their values, and eventually your product, is the only way how you can reduce efficiently the starting up risks, because they're inherent risks that you can do some irreversible mistakes. So it gets to you the working business model, which is paying customers. And just remember where we started a week ago, this is what you need to accomplish before you run out of the cash. So getting to a working business model before you run out of the cash is the main thing of a startup. Now you already got it going and swinging with the first task. Now again, look at the other side. Remember that a little template we have made for Prototon. Look at the other side. This, I think, it's purplish side of what are the risky product assumptions. Remember, you had your assumptions on the market. Now, what are the risky product assumptions? How are you going to test them? Do testing, come back, talk within a team, what has changed, and then prepare this development template, put this into this little Excel document we have prepared. And then as a bonus, try also as a result of those little tests or any tests you're making in the future to make a punchline for yourselves. What is the sticky value proposition or combination of propositions you're coming up with? What the market tells you is potentially sticky. Again, we're not that much into how big is the market, but what are the sticky parts of the market? So if you remember this template, it looks like this. So you were working on this greenish part, now on the purplish part. Try to do it. You can discuss it later with your mentors. You can discuss it later within a team. You can discuss it with Jana for sure. All right. So this was my story for today, and we're roughly on time. And Jürgen still has the hand raised. So is it an old hand, Jürgen, or just any new question? So once
That's
again,
an old hand, but thank you.
That's a old hand. So thank you so much for being again patient with me. And I wish you the very best with whatever you guys are up to, and still we can have a few questions if you're not too tired. I do have time. Today we had more lively discussion, Jana. Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm
Andres.
really happy that you were talking to very much like others also. Andres, you have any question?
Well, I wanted to ask, since you have done so much testing, what are some really unexpected results you have discovered from your initial expectations?
Well, that's plenty. What are the most unexpected things? Let's take some example, because I do it with many of my customers as well, and they do it. So I would try to think of a recent example. I told the disclaimer in the beginning that for the last about 4 or 5 years I do not have my own projects, but let's think about some interesting things of the customer discoveries. That's a good one. Just quickly rewinding it. Yeah, there was a team in one of the pre-accelerations program I ran who were trying to actually do a sort of a peer-to-peer, how it's called, the landlord and the tenant, like mutual evaluation, like scoring platform in Baltics, right? They ended up understanding that neither landlords nor tenants need any scoring, because landlords just price it into the price, right? So the very fact that someone scores better is not that important, because first of all, those exchanges don't happen super frequently, right? Because it was on a tenant. If it would be like a Booking or Airbnb situation, that's a different story. That's interesting, of course, and that they already have it. So they found that first of all, landlords are not interested in the scoring because the tenants exactly, they price it into the price, and the tenants are definitely not interested in scoring because they already pay the price, so they pay for being bad, and then they figure out that okay, it's maybe not a very huge insight, but I think it's kind of a nice one, because they understood that no one actually, the market fixes it in a brutal way of marking up the price instead of looking into who's naughty, who's nice, right? In a way. That was one of the very recent, but I can definitely come up, Andres, if you let me think for a while, can come up with something more tangible, a better one.
Well, thank you for this one. I don't know, maybe someone else has more questions. I'm always happy to hear more.
Absolutely. Any questions?
Yeah, there was a surprise about market fit that this binary. Really, that means that if you get some traction, then you need to be cautious, because if it's not like really good traction, that it's not a market fit. I understand it correctly, yes?
Yeah, well, there's definitely lots of things. Product market fit is something that could be actually mimicked by lots of things. For example, if you sell it too cheap, we already had a discussion with, I think, earlier. Then there definitely there isn't, super. You will get it in kind of feeling that everyone wants it, but it's not sustainable. Then there is a situation where you have this traction, but for some reason you're not scaling fast, and you have actually one of the things I've actually bought the most expensive way is that you don't look on the healthiness of the market, and you end up in actually having a very super niche type of freaks. In other words, an average person in the industry doesn't see the benefit, but only like a very few people see. But those people are too little in a number to sustain it. So in other words, you have this early adopters market, and it starts like growing like hell, and you're super happy that you found some product market fit, and then it fades because the only people who cared is this the freak market, the early adopter market, and this chasm to the mass market is uncrossable. It's also, so the traction does not equal product market fit, Guntis. If that was your remark, you're absolutely correct with that. Kerli.
Yes, hi, thank you. So I was just thinking if we can go a little bit back to the concept that if our solution is B2B and very specific.
Yeah.
So is the letter of interest the only thing, or is there any other possibilities for the testing?
Yeah, there are definitely other possibilities for testing, but are you more into the solution testing, or also the problem and the need testing?
Actually, both. So in our cases, it's technological solution that is already knowable that there is extremely high need for this. But this is a thing that is not locally done in Baltics at the moment. So, but it includes and deals with used batteries. So we are not also talking about that these technological solutions need to be nearby to be sustainable and so on. So my question is, here as the target group is very narrow, specific companies who are dealing with this.
Yes.
So however, what are the other possibilities to test the interest if we already have the letter of interest from them? So what else can we do?
How far are you from really offering the service itself?
So as a company level, we are starting. On a technological level, we have the proof of concept on lab scale.
Okay, so right. Well, it's a bit of limited information, but I would say that I would assume that there is not much of a doubt about that there is a problem because similar things are existing elsewhere, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes, yes.
So the only thing I think is to, on a problem level, on a customer level, I would say that the only question is how much those potential customers in Baltics or whatever is the region would be interested and susceptible to that solution, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then why it is why the others? And then you can think in what is called clone markets. What are the reasons why in those other territories and other regions these companies are using the service? Is it like a sort of some sort of a legislation push, or is it earning money, or is it any other sustainability benefits or something?
Actually, it's a combination of all of those.
Okay, then fine. Then you look how it looks in Baltics. Do we have a pushy legislation? If not yet, then we strike it through and focus on only the other things. And then there's the matter of what is the decision making kind of what I would, if I would be you, I would really look into very much what are these decision making factors and what are the sabotaging factors, right? And based on that, I don't know, there's not, if you figure out that there's decision-making factors look to be strong and become stronger.
So basically it would be enough if we know that the legalization, also that new directives from European Commission supports this, they require this. So that should be enough, at least for the initial market fit and evaluation.
This for initial problem, let's call it problem solution fit. That would be even one step before it's understanding whether the problem is imminent, right? Then there's also a good question always, how do they solve it now? And what are the alternatives? Because in a brutal way, if someone, doesn't see a benefit in your solution and can have maybe a less clean, but it somewhat a simpler or cheaper alternative, they may gravitate towards that. If there's not much alternatives, then I think your position is the problem solution fit is more likely to happen.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. But again, I think just the LOIs and then moving into some pilots is the only way you can probably go from here. Yes, Jürgen.
I have a question about false negatives, not false positives. That maybe there's a way to find out that the customer says that they don't need this product, but they actually need it. It's really easy to say that, well, our customer said no, so we are not going to move on with the idea. Actually, customer needs it and sees it after a couple of weeks, months, or years.
Yeah, but when we're back, Jürgen, to the thing we discussed last time a little bit, that it's very difficult to educate, if that's profound, if it's not just, a stance. Sometimes customers also play, the worse as they are. If it's not just a stance, if they really don't see the benefit of something that is like right now, and they might see in some time, it's always not a good news, because educating and evangelizing your market and teaching it's time and money, and most of the startups, it's actually it costs them life. So you make people smarter, but you at the expense of a successful sustainable and repeatable business model. But that's on one hand, but on the other hand, that's all. I would always, if I would talk to customers and they go like, okay, we don't need it, I won't stop here. I would ask why they think they don't need it, because and it's not like for pushing them or somehow like embarrassing them, but It's like, really, what I would always try to understand the logics behind this answer. So why do we think we don't need it? Because no one's pushing us, because we don't have that many of those customers right anyway, and they're not sufficiently we can't monetize them anyway, right? And that's why I'm just coming up with random ideas, but listening to what you were trying to build. So I don't know. That's a question. And again, that if they might be correct with that, right? There's maybe none of the reasons they should care, and maybe only some legislation will force them to do that.
When in my case, one of my case was that people understood the words differently. One group of society saw and understood what something meant one way, and other people differently.
Absolutely.
And because they were like opposite, opposing everything because they were so special, they didn't see the other ways, other meanings of the words.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right.
That could be the case, but again, be careful. I would invite you really to figuring out the way they think. But if it comes really to, understanding that they're not there yet, and there are no ways how to you make them traveling the learning curve quick and painless for you, that's a tough market. Again, I'm not saying that some haven't succeeded in bringing completely new experience to the market and being still a startup, not a big company, which typically brings completely new experiences of products or services. But that's just very risky. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It's just adds a risk if you need to educate the market.
It's just I saw that people do a lot of work, and then when the first no comes, and like a quantifiable no, then they drop their idea and run away.
No,
that we need a pivot, but actually they need to dig deeper. What went wrong, and do we understand it correctly? What's the mechanics behind?
Exactly. Keep asking. That's a beautiful comment. Keep asking whys. Don't stop at the surface. If someone tells you yes or no or whatever tells you, keep figuring out why. What's behind? What's the logics? What's the buying behavior? What are the things that can trigger that? Because it's funny thing, there are plenty of the products out there which are nice products, right? We give thumbs up on I don't know, Instagram or do other things with it, and then when it goes like, will you buy it? Well, no, not today, not this year. I'll think about it, right? And there is this figuring out what exactly makes the product crossing, this chasm from nice product to give it to me, right? It's a trick. That's the trick for all scalability. How we make how distinguish yourself from just cool thing. Yeah, but will you buy now? But the other way around, might not be a cool thing. Don't bring this to me, but just buy my product. All right.
Our last customer, the bank said that, okay, we just need the compliance. Please choose a compliance plus read our webpage. That's what we want. Just do it.
That's very bankish. That's
no bullshit. Just I pay money, you do the work, and then we just do the next thing.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Any more questions? Yeah, good. I think it was a good evening with you. I enjoyed it as always very much. I hope you also to at least some extent. So again, the slide deck will be sent to Jana, and she will forward it to you in case you want to revisit a few things here. And great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. And just a very short announcement. Sorry, I will not stop recording. So many of you were asked about Anu-Ox to add extra mentoring sessions. She was not able to find this kind of time, but I have agreed with her that she will be doing a fundraising and pitch deck workshop for you. So it means that if you will be there, not only looking in recording, then you can get a lot of questions answered by her. So yes, I see that not so many of you here, but I hope that those of you who are watching in the record, then you know that Anu will come at least as the workshop provider. Thank you, Versus, very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
And I don't know, Vestas, have you got the invitation